Hi, welcome everyone to another episode of Let's Talk Special Economic Zones. I'm your host, Ainsley Brown. In today's episode, we are going to discuss something that's very topical, and that is the role of special economic zones in the current supply chain crisis that we are having. Now, you might have, most people would have heard about the supply chain crisis, but if you haven't, you certainly would have been feeling it in terms of increased food prices, for example, or the shortage of certain items, or even now that we're approaching Christmas, the difficulty in sourcing certain items such as toys. And what has happened with it, in just a nutshell, it's a complex issue, is that essentially there's been pent up demand based on the pandemic, the lockdown. People are buying much more things, and during the pandemic, things had slowed down or even stopped. So, for example, and this is just an example, uh, just the shipping containers are in the wrong places. So, empty containers are in places where they don't need empty containers, and um, the where the places that need empty containers can't necessarily get them, and you have full containers in places where they can't essentially empty them or get them off the ships onto the port, from the port into the warehouses and factories and so forth. So there is a bit of a challenge, recalibrating all of that, and it's spread throughout the world. So that has resulted in issues. Now, what role can special economic zones play? And they are actually playing some of this role. They can play a role of being centralized staging areas because, of course, special economic zones will have different industries, different capabilities, of course, um, from logistics companies that do transportation and warehousing all the way through manufacturers. But the zone authorities, I think, in order to contribute or to assist and even capture and bring some of this, the resolution of this issue uh, to become of to your benefit, I think that what can happen is zones can be marketed, of course, if they have the space in such a way and be prepared or built in such a way that they can assist in terms of container storage, cross docking, which means two containers, as a basic example, two containers come in, they have different items. Um, uh, Items are taken out of container A to go into container B, and vice versa, so B to A, and then both containers are off to different destinations, right? That's one of those efficiencies that add that's central to logistics and supply chains, cross docking, right? So special economic zones can become centralized areas for such things. And also, one of the things that they can do as well is become control towers for greater visibility within the supply chain. Now, this is one of the challenges, not the only challenge. I'm not, suggesting that there is a panacea that solves everything, a magic bullet that, is fired and everything is solved. But having greater visibility would help, and greater collaboration between the various players in the chain and supply, and the special economic zones can function in such a way as being that control tower whereby you know where everything is and where it's supposed to go and what can be cross docked from what can't be and what destination and so forth. These things can happen. And as an example, a great example of this is Jamaica, for example. We're centralized in the Americas. We're literally in the middle between North and South America. And we have great shipping routes that can reach different parts of the world, including Central America, North and South, and even the West Coast of Africa and the West Coast of Europe. So, and also I should tell you that the freight rates, which is part of the crisis, have skyrocketed, but freight rates between Jamaica and the United States, for example, which is the biggest market in that region, have not changed much. So Jamaican special economic zones are critical or are well positioned to be that control tower to supply goods to North America. Yes, there is that high freight rate, say, coming from China and the Far East coming to Jamaica, but that is even more impetus for greater storage happening in Jamaica and for redistribution to the region and to North America, for example. That gives you that capability to be able to do that and then manage greater costs. So there's a level of cost efficiency that is there when you look at it from that perspective, that logistics perspective. Also, it will stimulate particularly other activities, and we know that e-commerce, particularly within the pandemic, I believe IBM might have done a study that showed that um, e-commerce basically has multiplied or accelerated 5 years into the future within 1 year, right? In terms of the spread and the technology being developed and all of these different things. But supporting all of that, you will have back office things, and Jamaica is well known for its BPO services, call centers, and the like. So those as well will be support services for that control tower, which is critical. And you need people that have that knowledge, which we do in Jamaica, of logistics, not just answering the phone and customer service. We have that too, but we also have on the other side people that are versed in logistics that can assist. You know, when there are very sophisticated programs that basically show how cargo moves and all of that. But basically, when you look at it, it's spreadsheets, and people are conversant or familiar with those in Jamaica. So that's just one example of how Jamaica can add value to this supply chain crisis. And we have that, or special economic zones, of course, which is regulated by the Jamaica Special Economic Zone Authority. So that's just an example. This doesn't mean that other special economic zones around the world can't add value. Of course they can. Ones in China, for example, in Shanghai, Hong Kong, and so forth, can do a similar thing in terms of being a control tower to control um, or to help smooth out the wrinkles that are there in the supply chain and add that visibility, add that um, um, how do you say, become in some ways an honest broker for that corporate cooperation and collaboration that can happen between players. And sometimes it's players that would normally be in fierce competition, but then they have to come together in order to assist this crisis. And the special economic zones are an ideal place to have this done. So if you like this episode, or if you want to see a future episode, please like, share, leave a comment down below, and I'll get right back to you. So bye for now.